This is Nick Richards from Boys Don't Cry.
I wanna be a cowboy, and you can be my cowgirl.
And you're listening to the New Wave Music Podcast now.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the New Wave Music Podcast. Sitting across from me is the one and only Steve.
And I'm sitting right across from the legendary T-Bone.
Ooh, legendary.
And if you're enjoying this podcast, as always, tips are appreciated. You can tip us at buymeacoffee.com/newwavemusic.
And we'd also like to thank our listeners in Nottingham, England. We really appreciate you listening over on the other side of the pond.
So T-Bone, it's been a while, but we're actually going back to our traditional format of album reviews.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. It has been a while. So let's start talking about Sparks. You'll remember them from their hits, This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us. Cool Places.
We're cooler now, cool places tonight.
And Music You Can Dance To.
All I wanna hear every day, every night is music that you can dance to. Every single beat's where it ought to be. Lips knocking good music. That and that alone is enough for me.
So this album is called The Girl Is Crying in Her Latte, came out in 2023. And Steve, as you very well know, Sparks continue to be very prolific and this is their 25th studio album, if you don't count the soundtrack for Annette, which they produced a couple of years ago. And this one's only a few short years since their last album, 2020's A Steady Drip, Drip, Drip. So this one, of course, has Russell Mael on vocals, Ron Mael on keyboards, Steve Nister on drums, Eli Pearl on guitars, Evan Weiss on guitars, and Max Whipple on bass. Steve, Eli, and Evan, they all worked on A Steady Drip, Drip, Drip with the band, and so they are back for this one.
Awesome. Well, T-Bone, I really enjoyed the Steady Drip, Drip, Drip. Huge Sparks fan. I'm really curious about this album, so let's go ahead and kick off the review. The album starts with the title track, The Girl Is Crying in Her Latte.
The girl is crying in her latte, yeah. The girl is crying in her latte, sad. The girl is crying in her latte, wow. The girl is crying in her latte, bad. Now she's leaving the place. Someone's taking her place.
To me, this opening track is a perfect way to jump into the album. It's both vintage-sounding Sparks with some great lyrics, and musically, it's using new sounds to add to its depths. The use of percussions and various electronic is almost like a symphony at times. It's a track I would say is a good song to pull you back into the world of Sparks, either as a lifelong fan of the band or if you're new to Sparks. And also, very quickly, I'd highly recommend also checking out the video to this album, to this song that accompanied it, as it features Cate Blanchett, and how amazing it was that she ended up on stage with Sparks on their recent tour.
Yes. It really couldn't start off with a better first single from this album. And the way it begins, it kind of has a grungy synth line and then a wonderful beat, and it's just near perfection. Russell sounds great as always, and I really love how the song comes to a near stop and then picks back up again. One of my favorite songs on the album, definitely.
Well, let's move on to track number 2, Veronica Lake.
They're working on the line till they all relate and they all do want to be Veronica Lake with that peekaboo hair. It's a big mistake, it's the following SEM. Put on the break, yet another girl called Veronica Lake.
From the opening hypnotic-like percussions, I was already pulled into this track. Russell's vocals just blend perfectly with that tempo. This was also another single off the album, and a track definitely worth checking out. So far, T-Bone, I'm 2 for 2 on the Sparks album.
Yeah, I think you like this one a little bit more than me. I found this to be one of the more unusual songs sonically on the album. Russell sings at such a manic pace that the story of actress Veronica Lake working for the war effort can be a bit difficult to fully understand. The song has a specific fast pace, but like I mentioned, I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites on the album. The next track, the third one, is one of my favorites, though. It's called Nothing Is As Good As They Say It Is.
Nothing is as good as they say it is, and I'd be remiss if I weren't honest with you. This is not a place that I can exist, not a break from this. I just don't want this, mama.
In a complete change from the previous track, this could quite possibly be the best song on the album. The story of a baby who isn't exactly excited to be born and wants to return to the womb is both clever and exceptionally well written. The first real use of guitars also make a strong appearance, and they work great. And I just absolutely love the line, "Mama, mama, is there a remedy? Can I go back to where I used to be? I was happy where I was previously, just floating there, stood tall."
To me, T-Bone, this track is nothing short of pure vintage Sparks sounding. I loved everything on this track, from the lyrics to the musicianship to the vocals. That slight tempo change to me added another layer, making this track an absolute highlight for me. It's also one that was stuck in my head days after listening to this album.
Next up is the fourth track, Escalator.
Going down, I'm going up, as she's going down.
The guys greatly changed the pace on this song. It's far slower, but it has some very interesting use of the synths. They're a little bit repetitive, but for the most part, I think they work well in conjunction with the lyrics. As with most of the tracks here, the story is really the strength of this song.
And T-Bone, this one, I could not help getting in a callback to last Sparks album, A Steady Drip, 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 with the song Lawnmower. This one really reminded me of that a little bit. It's just a simple yet effective keyboard blends perfectly into Russell's vocals. It's not my favorite song on the album, but it's still worth a listen. That's going to take us to track number 5, The Mona Lisa's Packing, Leaving Late Tonight.
No one knew she was so disturbed. No one knew she seemed imperturbed. No one knew she was so uptight. The Mona Lisa's packing, leaving late tonight.
Again, another masterpiece of a song from Ron and Russell. This one was on point from the vocals, the amazing lyrics, a great keyboard solo from Ron. It's safe to say, T-Bone, that this was one of the many album highlights for me.
Yeah, this one has a pounding drum and percussion line, which opens the song, which sonically is an unexpected move. It's a very clever song, big surprise from Sparks, with typically intelligent lyrics and smart keyboard, like you mentioned, from Ron. So the sixth track is called You Were Meant for Me.
I asked you out and you said no. Turn the pages, 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 turn the pages. How does it go then?
Ron goes all alien synths on this track. It's a wild mess of synths and works kind of really interestingly. But once the beat is introduced, as well as some additional poppy keyboards, it makes for a strange sounding combination, but one that works very well.
Yeah, this one starts out with an electronic pulse along with Russell's vocals. But what really pulled me into this song is how you keep getting subtle additions of instruments leading up to an effective chorus of the turn the pages, turn the pages, turn the pages. And again, it's a good song worth a listen on this album.
Yeah, and so number 7 is called Not That Well Defined.
Can a person say that they exist when so far they manage to resist any definition, any key? You are like a fall down from the sea.
And see, this is one of my favorite tracks also on the album. It's a great song as we reach the middle of this album. The way the music changes pace and style regularly is startlingly good. There's a grand sense of style that permeates throughout this track. The musicianship, especially Ron's synths and the drums, are outstanding from start to finish.
Again, like the songs that have come before this one does have a different tempo and a sound. I enjoyed the addition of a bit of strings that come into the song, which kind of surprised me. Like the songs before it, Russell's vocals are on point. The musicianship makes this track an enjoyable listen. Let's see how we feel about track number 8, We Go Dancing.
Who says we don't have the fun above the DMZ? We assemble daily and we dance incessantly and we go dancing, dancing. We go dancing, dancing.
The synth horns added another layer that immediately pulled me in. I gotta say I found the lyrics that just added to this song. But what I really enjoyed was that layering effect of various instruments that are used in the song. It's one that's maybe more for diehard Sparks fans, but I found this to be a very enjoyable listen.
Well, I think you're right on that. And yeah, unfortunately, once again, I don't agree with you on this track necessarily. It's not one of my favorites. I really think after such a previously amazing track, this one was a bit of a letdown. There just wasn't much to keep this song from being kind of a bland exercise. But on the positive side, there are some interesting embellishments from castanets to bass drums that I think really help to maybe take this just barely above an average song.
Well, let's see how you feel about track number 9, T-Bone, When You Leave.
They'll be breaking out every Belgian beer when you leave. They can't wait. They can't wait. I'm gonna stay just to annoy them. I'm gonna stay just to piss them off.
Jumping into the song, the lyrics are very effective to pull you into this track. It's one that, especially on repeat listening, I enjoyed more and more. And with lyrics like, I'm going to stay just to annoy you, I'm going to stay just to piss them off, classic Sparks. And that use of strings that comes in about halfway into the song makes the song just connect and work so well.
Well, you absolutely are right. I did love this one quite a bit more. You know, it's a great improvement over that last track, in my opinion. This song about what everyone will be doing once you leave from, you know, like you mentioned, Steve, including playing Xbox or making out, is juxtaposed by the narrator commenting on how he's going to stay in order to annoy the group. It's another example of how Sparks create a great story based on such simple things. That takes us up to the 10th track, Take Me for a Ride.
We don't have to stop and hide. So take me for a ride. I don't know a thing about you, but I need a ride. Let's go, Laura. Let's go, Laura. Faster, Laura.
For half of this track, Russell is really able to show just how good a singer he is, since at times the music feels like a secondary element. In some ways, it kind of sits below his vocals. And as the song progresses, the music becomes more and more prevalent and at times a bit frantic, matching the lyrical subject matter.
T-Bone, the opening of this track that combined the woodwinds with the synth blended so well for me. Then you get the vocals coming in and kind of building up the song. There's an electric guitar that comes in that works so well. But T-Bone, when the Let's Go Laura chorus comes in, I'm all in on this song. This was an absolute album highlight for me. I found it to be a very creative melody. And then let's move on to track number 11. It's Sunny Today.
It's sunny today. It's sunny today. So what should we do? Let's get with the crew.
Again, like most songs, it sounds fresh and not at the same time. The use of strings, and T-Bone, if I'm not mistaken, was that a harpsichord that was playing in the beginning?
Very possible.
I found this track to be a unique listening experience and one that you really need to hear with a good set of headphones to pick up all the just different musical cues that are coming in. While not my favorite song on the album, this one is still, I felt, was also worth checking out.
You know, for me, as with the earlier song, We Go Dancing, this one just doesn't make a strong impression. The use of synths to create the sound of strings is a nice touch. I don't know if it's actual strings.
Right.
I oftentimes think that Ron, as talented as he is on the keyboards, he produces the string sound, but it very well could be strings. But I thought it was a nice touch. But it doesn't change the fact, at least for me, that this song really doesn't go anywhere. The 12th track, A Love Story.
Hold my place in the queue, you're so kind. Gotta buy some drugs for this girlfriend of mine. Wait here, dear, it's a
And here Ron gets very funky with his opening synth. And I really like the way it's a complete change from what we've heard before on the album. Lyrically, it's a very funny song and something that we've come to expect from Sparks. How often do we get a song about a guy looking for drugs for a girl?
T-Bone, I agree with you on that. Lyrically, I really enjoyed the song, but the lyrics are a little bit more whimsical, but the pace or the tone of it was more kind of synth and a darker tempo to open up the song. That being said, though, I will probably say this is probably my least favorite song on the album.
And that surprises me. I think it's a very clever song, but hey, that's, like some, hate some. So that takes us up to the 13th track, one of my favorites on the album. It Doesn't Have to Be That Way.
They always said that it has to be refined, or you'll leave someone behind. All the pages must be lined. It doesn't have to be that way. Okay, I may be wrong. I'll pay for it, I'll pay for it.
So this one opens with acoustic guitar and a simple piano line, and that's an outstanding choice. It once again makes for a different sound, something that's become a common theme on this album. Later, the guitar work makes a strong impression and really gives this song a bigger sound.
And see, after the misfire of the previous track, I think the album gets back on track. From the opening, like you mentioned, with that soft acoustic guitar, to the way the music builds with Russell's vocals to blend perfectly. But the highlight for me was how well the music is played, kind of like an orchestra throughout the song. The tempo peaks with the chorus and makes for another absolute album highlight for me. In fact, I dare say this is probably the album highlight for me.
You've liked a lot of tracks on this album.
I did, and this one in particular is probably my favorite.
All right.
So let's close out the album with G. That was fun.
Gee, if I'd known, I'd have been less on my phone. I'd have been more in the zone if I had known.
Sparks, well, what can you say about them? They do know how to close out an album. This track is a perfect way to end this listening experience. It has everything we've come to love and expect from Sparks: tight vocals, musicianship, and lyrics. This one's going to leave you wanting a little bit more, as it's kind of a little short. I'm glad to see Sparks is using this as a closer in their current tour. I will say with the lyrics and the title, I hope this is not the farewell song from Sparks.
Normally, I would say that the pace of this closing track isn't the way that you want to end an album, but the sarcasm in the lyrics actually make it work for the most part. For me, it's not one of their best songs on this album, but I really do like the piano line that comes from Ron. Very well done.
T-Bone, I have not enjoyed an album this much in a while. While was it perfect? No. But to me, it didn't have a bad or really skippable song on the album. There was maybe a few I didn't like as much as the others, but it's still worth checking out. If you're a fan of Sparks, you probably have this album, and you're aware of it. If you're new to Sparks, first off, pause this podcast, go seek out the Sparks Brothers documentary, and jump into the world of Sparks, and then pick up this album. But it's one that I would highly recommend it, and will no doubt probably be my top 10 for the year. Now, my question for diehard Sparks fans is, though, where would you rate this? As this album kind of seems to be hit or miss among the community. I've seen a lot of people put in their top, and I've seen a lot of people put in their bottom of Sparks. Let us know what you think. Drop us a line at newwavemusicpodcast@yahoo.com to let us know your thoughts on the album.
And it's funny that you'd mention hit or miss, because I got to say this album was hit or miss with me, which will probably not endear me to the Sparks legions of devoted fans. I did like it a little bit more than their previous album, A Steady Drip, Drip, Drip. Unfortunately, the album has some significant distractions that accompany other songs which are clever and exceptional. Even though I say that, those good songs are genuinely good. Sometimes I simply think in this iteration of the band, they're trying so hard to be clever that it can harm the song as a whole. So I do recommend this album, but it is with reservations.
Well, T-Bone, let's get the tradition going again in between reviews. Let's jump into some music news.
Yeah, it has been a while since we've had any. So let's start off with Modern English. They have put together, or at least they're continuing to work on, a new album called 1, 2, 3, 4. And they are going to be hitting at least a part of the U.S. They start August 26th in St. Louis, Missouri, and they finish up September 30th in Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Yeah, and speaking of another band touring, The Church is resuming their Hypnagogue tour. It's going to kick off September 28th in Seattle, Washington, and run through November 1st in Evanston, Illinois.
And speaking of another tour, Howard Jones, Culture Club, and Berlin are joining efforts on the Letting It Go show. Now, this one is going to start on July 13th at West Palm Beach, Florida. I guess actually as of recording this, that's already started. And it'll continue through August 20th in Concord, California.
And speaking of tours, me and T-Bone, as sure a lot of our listeners as well, attended the Cure's Songs from the Lost World tour. And it was a great show, great tour.
Absolutely.
One thing I love the Cure did was they battled Ticketmaster, kept ticket prices, we'll say very reasonable. I think they're on average for $20 to $80 a ticket. And they showed that an artist can make a lot of money doing that. It was reported the Cure did their highest grossing North America tour ever, with bringing in $37.5 million on that tour.
That's a good amount of money.
And the Cure, if you've been to their shows, you also saw they kept their merch prices way down. So I'm sure they probably doubled or quadrupled that.
Oh, I would not be surprised at all.
Looking at some of these other artists, Depeche Mode.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was a sold out show, obviously, and I think that had a lot to do with it. And the show itself, it was from Cure fans to Cure fans, with lots of deep cuts, hits later on in the show. It was pretty fascinating.
Yeah. Now Robert can go back and get Songs from the Lost World finally out, hopefully this year.
We can keep our fingers
Not going to hold my breath.
Yes, exactly. And a band that has not been around for a while, the Talking Heads, are issuing an expanded edition of Stop Making Sense. Now this one is going to include Cities. And Big Business Izimbra. Which were part of the original album, but not really focused on. And then they were removed and put into the DVD release and back and forth. But they will be reissued with better quality tracks for this one. And that comes out August 18th.
A lot of bands have their 40th anniversary, but we're going to talk about a band that's releasing their 30th anniversary. The Connells is releasing the 30th anniversary of their album Ring. That's going to have a bunch of demos, including the demo for Carry My Picture. And that'll be available on August 11th.
And I love that album. That is a fantastic Connells album. And then finally for the news, you may or may not have heard of Darker Waves. It's a big all-day show that's going to be November 18th in Huntington Beach, California. Now, sadly, the show is sold out, but if you're going to it, guess who you'll be able to see there? Yes, T-Bone and Steve. We will be at the show. We would love to meet listeners, so we'll try to make ourselves obvious in some way. And if you do see us, come by and say hi.
Yeah. In addition to us, of course, the tour is going to feature New Order, Tears for Fears, OMD,
Soft Cell,
bunch of other bands.
Oh, yeah, Clan of Zymox. It's going to be a big show.
All right, T-Bone. Well, I think that's enough news. Let's jump into our second album review. This one's going to be a band from you probably haven't heard of for quite some time, The Vapors. And if you need a reminder of who the Vapors were, they, of course, had their ultra hit, Turning Japanese.
Turning Japanese, I think I'm turning Japanese, I really think so. Turning Japanese, I think I'm turning Japanese, I really think so. Turning Japanese, I think I'm turning Japanese, I really think so.
As well as a few other hits, News at 10.
And you smile at him and agree 'cause he's your old man. Still I can't hear you. You make no sense to me. Still I can't hear you. When the time comes I disagree on your policy.
And Jimmy Jones.
He's got a mission in life, but doesn't nice to me. You wanna take his hand and come into the garden with me. Jimmy Jones, Jimmy Jones, Jimmy Jones, Jimmy Jones, 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 and he's so crunch, Jimmy Jones.
Yes, and so this album is called Together. We're going back just a couple of years to 2020 for this one. So, Steve, this is only their third studio album after over 40 years since their second album, 1981's Magnets. So the band includes original members Dave Fenton on vocals and guitars and Steve Peter Smith on bass. Ed Bazalgette on guitars. I don't know that he's an original member, but I think he's been with them for a while. And then we have Michael Bowes on drums and Danny David Fenton on guitars. And yes, if that last name sounds familiar, that is Dave's son.
The Vapors did, of course, exist from 78 to 81. They broke up about 34 years after inactivity. Dave Fenton, Ed, and Steve Smith appeared on the stage at the Half Moon Fest on April 30th, 2016. They played Turning Japanese and then left the stage. Since then, they've been getting promoted. They kind of got the band back together at that point. They did drop this album, like you said, back in March of 2020, and since then they've been touring a lot of festivals.
Well, and speaking of together, that is the first song on this album.
We used to laugh, but we don't sometimes. That's what we both need. So let's get together, come on. Let's get together, come on. Let's get together, come on. I said let's get together, come on. Let's get together, come on. Let's get together, come on.
And Steve, this is one of my favorite tracks. This outstanding opening song really is a peppy rocker. As we're going to find out with the album as a whole, the chorus is immensely catchy, really sucking you into the track. You will find yourself singing along instantly, and Dave sounds great after all these years.
Yeah, T-Bone, I got to admit, first off, when you suggested the Vapors, I just knew Turning Japanese.
Yeah.
Didn't know what to expect.
I didn't either.
I got to admit, from the opening guitar riff to the upbeat tempo to the catchy lyrics, this song quickly became an album highlight for me. I love the semi-surf rock or throwback vibe to the 60s rocks. Dave's vocals are fantastic. I can see why this was the first single off the album. It's a fabulous track and an outstanding way to kick off the album.
That takes us up to the second track, Crazy.
Won't you come inside and lock the door? I don't know what you're waiting for. I don't care what other people see. I'm in love with you, you're in love with me. And crazy don't seem crazy anymore. So what you waiting for?
This one opens with some frenzy guitar riffs that set the tone for this fun song. For me, though, the bass line is the real highlight. But again, we have a chorus that makes this song work so well.
Yeah, like you said, I love the opening frenzy of guitars that blend into the vocals and into the percussions. The lyrics I felt were tight, and it's a song that's going to be stuck in your head and have you humming along to this love song.
Well, and I think that's going to be a common theme throughout this album.
Right.
The choruses are just so catchy and hummable and singable. I think we're going to find that to be a regular thing.
Moving on to track number 3, Sundown River.
All I really want is floating down the river. All I really want is a reason to forgive her. Can't believe that I'm not floating down the river with you. Down the river with you. Sundown River.
Here I feel the rest of the band, along with Dave's vocals, really get a shine. From the driving guitar riffs to the bass to the percussions, it blends so well. I also found the vocal harmony very effective. It's another solid song. T-Bone, if you would have said to me I would be 3 for 3 on a new Vapors album right now, I would think you were crazy a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I think we're all a little bit surprised here. Yeah, this track slows things down a bit from the previous song's frantic pace. The guitar work is stellar, and the drumming is some of the best on the album. There's a tonal change late in the song that's brief, but a real compliment to the rest of this track. And that takes us up to the fourth, Real Time.
Freeze frame, freeze frame, freeze frame. And look at so much they have not. Let's live in real time. Let's live in real time. Let's give in real time. And share out what we've got.
Dave's vocals start this track with a smooth, mellow confidence until the song picks up at a stronger pace, then transitions back and forth between two different tones. It's really a smart move from the band. Late in the song, there's a wonderful secondary guitar line that's unexpected, and it works really well with the lead guitar.
Yeah, this one starts out with a bit more percussions than what we've heard so far on the album. I also enjoyed the use of the freeze frame vocals and the tempo, how they use that makes that work effectively. The added keyboards make a nice blend into the chorus. It's not my favorite track on the album, but it's still highly enjoyable. Moving on to track number 5, however, Girl from the Factory.
Girl from the factory. factory's always gonna haunt me on and on and on. Girl from the factory's always gonna haunt me on and on and on.
She seemed alright.
Girl from the factory's always gonna haunt me on and on and on.
She seemed alright.
Girl from the factory's always gonna haunt me on and on and on.
This song is not only the album highlight for me, but it's one that I'm continuing to listen to a lot. I loved everything on this song, from the driving percussions, the guitars, and the rest of the musicianship. The tight lyrics and that chorus will pull you into this gem of a song.
Yeah, the use of acoustic guitars to open this song is a smart move. The slower pace gives the band the opportunity to focus on some fine instrumentation, and Dave's vocals, as well as the brilliant backing vocals that go along with him, are inspired and raise a nice track to even a higher level. That takes us up to the 6th track, I Don't Remember.
I don't remember words that I'm supposed to sing. Although I wrote them, I don't remember anything. But then it comes to me. But then it comes to me.
Steve, this is another one of my favorite songs on the album. The guitar and bass combination are the highlight of this exceptional track, but it's the guitars that make this song work so well. There's moments of funk that seep in to create a unique sound, enhancing this track in a spectacular way.
Yeah, this one has a great beat to start off the song. I also found that the use of that electric guitar to be very effective to guide you throughout the song. I particularly liked how it blended into the vocals leading in and out of the chorus. A great song, well worth checking out. Let's check out track number 7, In Babylon.
Well, we can all be brothers in Babylon, and we can all be sisters in Babylon, and we can all be lovers in Babylon, from Babylon, from Babylon. But for the first time in my life, I stand alone without a knife.
What really pulled me into this song was how the tempo would build up to the chorus. I'll say this, T-Bone, I have no idea how the 2 previous albums from the Vapors sound, but so far we're 7 in, and so far I'm really enjoying what I'm hearing on this album.
Oh, could not agree more with you. I love the way this track changes pace at different times, then builds in tone as the song continues. It's one of those songs that seems like it ends before you'd expect it to, and it's probably my least favorite song on the album, but strangely enough, I still found it to be a good listen. So that takes us up to the 8th track, Letter to Hero, number 11.
I read your letters, everyone. I read your letters, everyone. But you don't say where you're coming from. You don't say where you're coming from. You don't say why you went to war. You don't say why you went to war. You don't say what you're fighting for. But if you wait till the war is all over, and then you wait till they all drop their guns.
This one has a fantastic way of using the singing, then repeating the lines like some sort of military chant that makes this song work so exceptionally. The bass creates a great groove to accompany the outstanding drum work, but the highlight of the track has to be how it builds and builds late into the song. It's a great choice that changes the overall sound in a brilliant way.
Yeah, T-Bone, speaking of sounds in a brilliant way, I love how the guitar and the percussions are mixed together to kick off this track. And I like how Dave's vocals deliver the lyrics and found them to be very effective throughout the song. Like you mentioned, kind of like a military type song where he's saying it to the band, they're repeating it back to him like they're in...
It works perfectly.
Like they're in military camp or
Absolutely.
base camp. It's another song I'd highly recommend.
So that takes us up to the 9th track, Wonderland.
You love it when the lights go out. I've told you before, you're living in Wonderland. White rabbits confused, Mad Hatter is too. I've told you before, you're Alice in Wonderland.
Steve, again, one of my favorite songs on the album. The wordplay using Alice in Wonderland as a theme is a smart move with fantastic lyrics. The chorus, again, is incredibly catchy, and you'll be hard-pressed not to sing along. Plus, the guitars, drums, and bass all work together in tandem to create a full sound that's becoming very common on this album. And cowbells. They lay the background and are a great addition on this track.
T-Bone, it's been a while since we've done a full album review episode, and I thought you would have stopped copying my notes, but apparently I was wrong. We come to this, my second favorite song on the album. I think most of our listeners are fans of Alice in Wonderland, and I'm thrilled when a song can reference it. We get, as you mentioned, some cowbell added into the percussions, along with some driving guitars to kick off the song. But what really makes this an album highlight for me is, like you mentioned again, that catchy chorus.
Oh, so good.
Everything on this song for me is on point, and it's one I would highly recommend this song to anyone. We'll see how we feel about track number 10, Those Tears.
And I can say it won't happen again, but I will say that I'm willing to change if you'll help somehow. But look at those tears falling down, just look at those tears falling down. Look at
I enjoyed how the bass and the guitar melody kick off this track. I found the lyrics and Dave's delivery of them on point. I would say this is another album highlight for me, but I'm really surprised at how much I'm enjoying overall this whole album.
Well, yeah, and it is another album highlight for me. We've all heard songs about a breakup, but I really don't know that there's another that expresses how confusing and painful it can be. Dave and the band backing him vocally and instrumentally create a real sense of loss, especially during the amazing chorus, another one of their amazing choruses. All the tracks on this album are between 3 and 4 minutes long, and I easily could have had this one go on far longer. Every part of it works. And that takes us up to the 11th track, King L.
I was a beautiful loser then, I'm still a beautiful loser now. But you're a beautiful loser, I would sooner not live without, no doubt. King L. King L, King L, King L.
A fantastic drum line opens this track, and the pace couldn't be better. The guitars are the focus of the instruments, though, but there's a great bass line that lies underneath. It's a peppy track that pulls you in with smart lyrics and strong instrumental playing.
T-Bone, I really like how every song on this album is very unique sounding. This one adds a bit more rock, and that clap beat at the beginning I found to be very effective. I think it's safe to say that the Beatles were a big influence on Dave and the Vapors.
Oh, no question.
And it really shows on this track, and in fact, it really shows throughout this album.
And so that takes us to the last track on the album, the 12th, Nuclear Nights.
'Cause those nuclear nights, followed by the nuclear mornings, make the sun so bright in your eyes. Don't cry when it ends.
This is a fantastic way to close off an exceptional album. Dave's vocals are very smooth and assured, and when the chorus comes in, it changes the pace and volume of the track in just the right way. It's a great positive move to end the album, including some remarkable guitar work that shows just how legitimate the Vapors are as a band.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Dave's vocals start the song off along with some percussions and guitars mixed together that works very well. I enjoyed the tempo changes that changes just a bit with each line until it peaks with that chorus. And the one thing I found odd about this song, though, is it just kind of ends. It left me wanting more.
Well, and I felt that about a lot of tracks on this album.
And speaking of wanting more, so I did a little digging. I found out the Vapors actually released 2 more songs. One in 2021 called One of My Dreams Came True.
I feel so much stronger than before. 'Cause one of my dreams came true. Yeah, one of my dreams came true. Yeah, the one about me and you. Yeah, one of my dreams came true.
And I really enjoyed the use of the acoustic guitar and some strings that accompany Dave's stripped down vocals on this song. It's really worth seeking out. The other one they released was in 2022 called Novocaine.
Novocaine, just give me Novocaine, all over Novocaine, to take away the pain. Yeah, Novocaine, just give me Novocaine, all over Novocaine, to take away the pain. Yeah, Novocaine, just give me Novocaine, all over Novocaine.
It's another catchy 60s sounding rock song. Definitely worth checking out from the Vapors. It's one I enjoyed as well.
Oh, very nice. So you can probably tell by the way I've nearly gushed in approval of this album that I loved it. If you would have told me that the band was still together and put out a new album after 40 years, as you mentioned earlier in this review, Steve, I would not have believed it. Yet, after seeing them play at Cruel World and discovering that their extended set included songs I've never heard, I knew something was up. These aren't songs that are trying to cure the ills of society or make bold statements about life. They are simply perfectly crafted rock songs, plain and simple. Do I recommend this album? I don't think the answer could be more clear. Do yourself a favor. Listen to this album, or better yet, support the band and buy it. You will not regret it.
T-Bone, this album I went into blind, like 99.99999% of our listeners. My exposure to the Vapors was turning Japanese.
That's all I knew.
And as you could tell from the review I gave this album, I was pleasantly surprised. And this album's actually quickly becoming a favorite of mine. To be honest with you, if you told me a few weeks ago I would love this album, I would say you're crazy. But I do. I love almost every track on this album. It's a pure joy album to listen to. It's very upbeat, easy listen. I was thrilled you recommended that we dive into this for the podcast. And I'd highly recommend this album to our listeners. It will not disappoint.
Yeah, Steve, we talk about this regularly about how an album has re-listen value.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go back to Sparks just a little bit. I enjoyed Sparks, but I don't know that I'd want to listen to it over and over and over again. Whereas with this one, the choruses are so singable and the musicianship is so well put together that this is one that I could listen to over and over and over.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. As I did my notes for Sparks, I really enjoyed it. Then after I did my notes for Sparks, I dove into the Vapors, and I really enjoyed it. And it's one that I keep playing on heavy rotation.
Yeah.
That's how much I really enjoyed this album.
Who would have expected that?
Yeah, no clue. I just hope the Vapors don't take another 30 years to put another follow-up album.
No question. Yeah, and in the fact that you mentioned that they did a couple of songs after this one, I hope that just means that they're progressively working on another album that will come out much sooner.
Well, T-Bone, just as we're getting back into the swing of things of our traditional format of 2 album reviews, our next episode, guess what? We're going to have a special guest joining us for that one.
Yes, a very special guest, someone that you will definitely recognize. He's put together new songs, and he's always wondering about if things can get better. You'll have to wait and see who it is.
Wondering about what is love.
Yes, exactly. You'll just have to find out who that person is.
Needless to say, it's a new wave icon.
Yes. And then we'd also like to just, once again, thank you for listening. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, a little bit on TikTok, not as much as we used to. And then, of course, we would love to hear from you by email. That's newwavemusicpodcast@yahoo.com. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to doing another one very soon with you.